It is estimated that 1% of the people control approximately 44% of the world's wealth. As a result, many people fantasize about incredible wealth and the power that comes with it. Even if money is a powerful thing, it doesn't guarantee security. Many of the richest people in the world have met dire ends. For example, these 10 extremely wealthy people were brutally murdered. Selena Quintanilla Perez, better known as Selena, was a Latin American musician and rising star internationally. She attracted many fans around the world, including a woman named Yolanda Saldivar. Saldivar was so fond of Selena's music that she asked Selena's father if she could start a fan club, which led to her meeting and working for Selena. After Saldivar became president of the fan club and started running boutiques owned by Selena, the star began to suspect Saldivar of embezzlement from both the fan club and boutiques. Selena brought the charge against Saldivar in a hotel room on March 31, 1995. In response, Saldivar shot Selena in the back. Selena, 23, died of blood loss and cardiac arrest, and Saldivar was soon arrested. Saldivar claimed the pistol was fired by accident. However, the authorities did not believe her and accused her of Selena's murder. Saldivar was sentenced to life in prison in October 1995. Selena was worth approximately $10 million at the time of her death. Christopher George Latour Wallace, known by various names such as the notorious Biggie Smalls and Biggie, the East Coast rapper, was best known for hits like Juicy and Big Poppa, as well as his feud with West Coast rapper Tupac Shakur. This feud is remembered in rap history as the feud between the East Coast and the West Coast. After Tupac's assassination in 1996, Wallace decided it was his job to unite the two coasts because Tupac was no longer around. Ironically, Wallace, 24, was killed in a shootout on the road on March 9, 1997, after leaving a Vibe magazine party. His murder remained unsolved, but many believed it was part of the still escalating feud between the East and West Coasts. Wallace was worth $20 million at the time of his death. Richard Oland. Oland are one of the richest families in Canada. They have owned and operated the Moosehead breweries since 1867, when Suzanne Oland founded the brewery. Richard Oland, 69 at the time of his death, was not yet employed at the brewery. Instead, he left alone and opened several other profitable businesses on July 7, 2011. He was found beaten to death in his office by his secretary. At the time, Oland was worth about $37 million, mainly from his transportation and investment companies. His son Dennis was initially arrested and charged with Richard's murder. Dennis' main motivation was believed to be financial difficulties. In the first trial, he was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. However, after a successful appeal and a retrial, he was found not guilty for lack of conclusive forensic evidence. As a result, the murder remained unsolved. Adolph Course III. He was the successor of the Course Brewing Company. He served as chairman and CEO until his assassination in 1960 at the age of 45. On February 9, 1960, while the Course was traveling to work in Morrison, Colorado, he was kidnapped by Joe Corbett, an escaped assassin. Corbett was holding a $500,000 ransom course that Corbett hoped to use while he was on the run. Unfortunately, the course was killed by Corbett, who left the body in a garbage dump before the ransom was paid. Corbett fled to Vancouver. He lived there for several months before neighbors recognized him and reported to the authorities. Following his extradition, trial and conviction, Corbett was sentenced to life in prison and served less than 20 years before being released on parole. John Lennon. As the lead singer of the Beatles, John Lennon was one of the most famous and influential people in the world. This fame continued long after the Beatles disbanded in 1970 and Lennon began a solo career. His fame also caught the attention of Mark David Chapman, who said that he wanted to become someone. He decided to kill Lennon in order to accomplish this goal. On December 8, 1980, Chapman entered Lennon's apartment armed with a pistol, a revolver and a copy of J. The Catcher in the Rye by D. Salinger, which he bought the same day. In the book Chapman wrote, "This is my statement." He signed it, Catcher in the Rye. Chapman first met Lennon that evening and asked the 40-year-old musician to sign an autograph before he left for the recording session. Then Chapman waited for Lennon to return. When the ex-Beatle returned to his apartment that night, Chapman made his move and opened fire. Lennon was shot several times and died on the way to the hospital, losing 80% of his blood. At the time of his death, Lennon's fortune was estimated at approximately $200 million. Gianni Versace. Italian fashion tycoon Gianni Versace remains one of the most influential figures in fashion more than 20 years after his death. In 1978 he founded Gianni Versace Spa and hired his brothers and sisters to help him. Since then, Versace has revolutionized the fashion industry with celebrity models, sexually charged models and close ties to the stars of the day. Unfortunately, he met a brutal end at the hands of 27-year-old spree killer Andrew Cunanan on July 15, 1997. At the age of 50, Versace was shot and killed outside his Florida home. He was the fifth person to be killed by the Cunanan in a cross-country murder chase that lasted for about 3 months. His motives for attacking Versace remain unknown. 6. The Cunanan committed suicide 8 days after Versace's assassination. The serial killer left no note or any other explanation for his actions. At the time of his assassination, the Versace empire was worth $807 million. Edouard Stern, one of the richest men in France, amassed an estimated $1 billion fortune by selling his family bank and founding his own investment firm, IRR Capital. He was also a close friend of former French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Despite his wealth and connections, Stern was a sex pervert with many mistresses. He also hired prostitutes to fulfill his desires. On the night of February 28, 2005, Stern, then 50, was killed in a hotel room by his mistress Cécile Brossard in what is described as a love quarrel while the couple were having sadomasochistic sex. Brossard shot Stern twice with his pistol, and he soon bled to death. Still wearing his skin-colored latex jumpsuit from the previous night, Stern was found the next morning by his colleagues. Brossard was soon captured and tried for Stern's death. She was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. She spent 5 years in prison, including 4 years awaiting trial, before being paroled in 2010. Edmond Safra. Lebanese-Brazilian banker Edmond Safra has been a controversial figure throughout his life and after his death. Safra opened his first bank at the age of 21. But he based it on deposits as opposed to more traditional loans, so people began to wonder if something was wrong. Speculations about the real source of his wealth ranged from drugs to arms trafficking and money laundering. Although Safra was interrogated several times, no evidence of his guilt was found. All the facts indicated that Safra had made his $2.5 billion fortune through his international banks and nothing else. 8. However, rumors resurfaced after Safra and his nurse were killed in a deliberate arson attack in December 1999. A wide range of suspects have been introduced, from the Russian mafia to the Colombian drug cartels. In fact, one of Safra's orderlies, a man named Ted Ma, set the fire in a frantic attempt to save his boss and get his approval. The fire quickly got out of control, not allowing Ma or anyone else to rescue the stranded 67-year-old billionaire or his other nurse, Vivian Torrente. Both died from smoke inhalation in the bathroom. For these deaths, Ma was sentenced to 10 years in prison in 2002. He was released in October 2007. Barry and Honey Sherman. On December 15, 2017, Canadian billionaires Barry and Honey Sherman were found murdered at their Toronto home in what police described as ritual killings. The Shermans were strangled with straps tied to a railing, and stood in positions similar to statues on display. Police initially believed that 75-year-old Barry Sherman had killed his 70-year-old wife and then committed suicide. However, upon further investigation it emerged that both were killed by an unknown assailant. Barry Sherman amassed his family's fortune through the pharmaceutical company Apotex. With a fortune of $3.2 billion, he was the 12th richest Canadian at the time of his death. To date, this case remains unsolved. Helen Pastor. Once the richest woman in Monaco, she controlled 15% of the country's housing stock at the time of her death in 2014. She was a direct descendant of the Italian mason Jean-Baptiste Pastor. Together with his son Gildo, Jean-Baptiste built a business empire that made the family second only to the royal family of Monaco. 77-year-old Helen Pastor was attacked on May 6, 2014, when she and her driver were ambushed, arranged by a man with a sawn-off shotgun in his hands. The pastor survived the initial attack long enough to provide a description of the attackers before dying from her injuries on May 21, 2014. An investigation into this incident revealed that the assassination attempt on a pastor was orchestrated by Polish diplomat Wojciech Janowski, who was a civil partner of the pastor's daughter Sylwia. Janowski hoped to gain access to the inheritance of Helen the pastor, since he assumed that it would go to Sylwia. This fortune, which at the time of the pastor's death ranged from $3.70 to $25 billion, apparently did not go to Janowski. Instead, he received a life sentence for orchestrating the assassination of Helen the pastor.